So I was chatting with somebody like, oh, hey, you're Creole. If you want to learn the language and connect with other Creoles, you should join the Discord. And they were like, oh, yeah, well, actually, like, my family always told us we were Creole, but my DNA test said I'm not. So I guess I'm actually not. That was like a year or two ago, and I just recently saw this article about how this type of thing is becoming like new age astrology, because apparently a lot of people are also completely abandoning their entire culture and ethnic identity because of these tests. But there are a few things you absolutely should keep in mind. First of all, we paid these companies our good money to take our DNA off of our hands and turn around and make bank off it. And now we're trusting them to tell us who we are more than we know ourselves, like over our own family. Another thing, what these tests do is called genotyping, where they take a selection of genes to try and give you a picture. But the thing is, you could take literally like the same spit and split it into different tubes and you would get different test results, because there's different genes being tested. You can get like high likelihood of something or low likelihood of something. Like things can dramatically alter, give you a totally different picture. It's like one of those things you put the lottery balls in and you spin it around, and every time you get a different number. Okay? There's even a thing where you can go in where it equals 100%. That's where the likelihood that it's accurate is at its lowest. So if you change it to where the likelihood is at its highest, then you get a lot less than 100% DNA, because at 100% it's just not very certain. Even if you did full genome sequencing, where they look at every single gene, which these types of companies don't do, but if you did, like every gene in our genome has like a name to identify it, but we don't necessarily know what each of them do, or for some of them there's very little information about what they do. Even then, it's not like one gene equals one thing. It's more like you have several genes that mean that you have a likelihood of having something. It doesn't necessarily mean that those genes are being expressed. So you can have those genes to have a high likelihood of whatever, but if they're not being expressed, nobody's gonna see it. Also, the results you get are based on the database that that specific company has. So you got to think of like the demographics of people that are most likely to be able to afford to take these tests. That is going to be like the major composition. That's why you have a lot more detail for certain demographics than for others. Which also means that as more people take these tests, the database changes, so your results are also going to change over time. Even if you could say that everyone born in Louisiana from the time it was first colonized till the time it was sold to the US is Creole, there are like certain genetic markers that can be identified that can say like, yeah, you probably are a part of this group. But actually what's been happening lately is a lot of people got that label, and now they're, as they get more customers and more information in their database, they reassign those people to geographically adjacent ethnic groups or genetically adjacent ethnic groups. But even if your ancestors were born in Louisiana during that time period, and that technically makes you Creole, they're not necessarily going to have those genetic markers. Like, you could still be Creole and not have those genetic markers. It might catch maybe even the majority of people, but that doesn't mean it's going to catch everybody. And then you got to consider that that was over 200 years ago. So, maybe your family wasn't Creole back when Louisiana was a French colony, but maybe they've been a part of the Creole community for a century or two. Like, does that not also count for something? I would just really encourage anybody watching this to not completely throw away everything your family ever told you about your ethnic background based off a test like this without verifying with historical records first. Like, the records are there. You don't have to pay and order the original vital records and have the hard copy mailed to you. After like 75 years, this stuff becomes public record. Tons of it is scanned and uploaded online. You can access this stuff for free. You can find census records, birth, marriage, death, like military, citizenship, ship manifests, like slave schedules. Like, there's tons of information out there, and you would be like, if you never looked, you would be amazed what you can find. I would absolutely say trust the historical records above these tests any day.